Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the newest series in the Canadian podcastic universe, Pop Canada. Here, we're going to be having some more relaxed, funnier, hopefully funnier discussions, probably pretty cringy, just around some of the larger areas of pop culture that Canada's involved in, talking about things that we sort of find interesting, but don't really fit into a literary or historical view. This is very much pulpy, fun discussion time for us. And for our first episode, what mysterious and hidden world of Canadian pop culture are we talking about? Cirque du Soleil. I hope Celine Dion's going to have like a 5-part mini-series.
Oh my God. Can you imagine how horrible that would be? Anyway, go on.
We're going to be talking about Cirque du Soleil. I'm your host for this one, Mackenzie Cooper, and with me is the mastermind of our operations. The man can make 200 IQ decisions while leaving behind 300 IQ for studying literature. If you hear him here, he'll be in your ear all year. It's Patrick.
Oh, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Mackenzie.
That's a bit of a tongue twister there. Shit.
Just a bit. I was going to go with something much more homoerotic and be like, you're a unicorn because you're always in my dreams, but it's hi. Anyway, hi. Let's get to talking about this Cirque du Soleil because my knowledge of popular culture in Canada is surprisingly limited.
Same. That's another reason why I kind of want to do this. I want to expand that sort of like, I know some basic things. You know, we have a lot of comedians, funny people come from here. The CW channel films everything in British Columbia.
Yep.
And then we got a lot of video games coming from Montreal and that sort of area. But I want to learn more, you know?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. My knowledge kind of is framed with comic books that center around Canada, especially because I wrote something about that. So that's where my knowledge of that comes from, because I deliberately went out of my way to do that.
10-part miniseries. Done.
10-part miniseries on it. Yeah, let's do it. And movies. Yeah, you say, filming in places like that, but just actual movies that are made here by Canadian people like David Cronenberg and stuff like that. Like I really
Denis Villeneuve.
Yep, exactly. Denis Villeneuve. Yep.
And so the other thing with the show is it's going to be split into 2 segments. One where we discuss sort of this larger branch of pop culture, and then at the end we're going to have a bit of time for us to sort of, just for us to shoot the shit about some current event that's happening in Canadian culture.
Yeah.
So for example, we're going to talk a lot about Cirque du Soleil, and then at the end we're going to talk a bit about what's been happening with the Quebec adaptation of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, known here as Le Squad, Neuf Neuf.
Yep. I'm very excited for that. Yep. I'm
saying Neuf Neuf because I don't want to say 99 all the time. I'm sorry, but
420s 9? Yep.
420s 10-9?
420s 10-9. Yep. I like that. Brooklyn 420s 10-9. That sounds like a good translation.
That's perfect. And it's also, you know, they say 99 there. They don't say 99. Brooklyn 99.
Yeah.
So starting in just on Cirque du Soleil, I'll give a little rundown of some background stuff that we can talk about them. So Cirque du Soleil started in 1984. There was an original circus run by a couple of guys before that called Les Échassiers. I don't know. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
It's Échassier. Yeah. Close.
Échassier. There you go. They almost fell into ruin, though, in 1983. But then they were saved by a government grant. This is kind of interesting because something similar is happening now with I'm going to date the video a bit, but with the COVID pandemic, they've also been getting some support and relief from the government, which makes sense. They are an integral part of the culture of Quebec. And as we'll see a bit later, part of the economy and education system, which is kind of insane, but that's for later.
What?
Oh my God.
Okay, that's a bit of a sizzle. I'm so down for this.
They were founded by Guy Laliberté and Gilles Sainte-Croix. So fun fact, at my boarding school, I went to a boarding school on Sherbrooke. There was a guy there whose name was Laliberté.
Okay.
We never, ever confirmed it. But you were always thinking, like, is he the son of, like, is he related to the guy?
I'd almost think so, except La Liberté is kind of a common name
That's what kind of stopped it. That's what it was like. We still sort of considered it just because, like, this was a bit of a posh school. Like, I'm not going to lie about that one,
Right.
you know? So it's like, oh, So we knew a little bit.
Nice. So the only thing I know about this early period is something that I heard about in this must have been like middle of high school, right? Around Sec 3 or 4, because someone made a presentation about the early years of the Cirque du Soleil.
I love it. Tell me what
And
you know.
no, it's insane. It's batshit crazy, okay? Because it's all about sex. It's basically sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right?
I love it. Tell me more.
Okay, so I brought up on here a McLean's article that talks about this era, right? And basically, there's this guy who is kind of how do you say it? Like a not a smut writer, but like a yellow journalism writer. I don't know how to say. Well, Ian Halpern, like a gossip writer. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, so a gossip writer, and he's kind of known for writing these unauthorized biographies.
Okay.
Right, like Céline Dion, about Kurt Cobain and his death and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
wrote one about Guy Laliberté. Right, and
Nice.
that whole presentation that I'm talking about, that I remembered literally just a bit before starting recording here, and that's why I'm just rapidly looking it up. Is the only thing I remember about this presentation is how insane everything sounded, right? And basically just rereading this article, before the Cirque du Soleil really hit it big, it's incredible that it even got off the ground.
Oh, for sure.
And the sense that apparently the performers were just having these massive all-nighter parties where drugs and cocaine and alcohol were just flowing freely just before going on stage. While people were coming into the tents, they were screwing in the behind the scenes and literally just finishing seconds before coming on. It sounds nuts.
Jesus.
Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned like that it had a kind of rough start, because no kidding, right? They weren't like, nobody was really conscious or taking it seriously that this would become what it became, right?
Mm-hmm.
And before we move on too far from where we are, the article also mentions one of the reasons why the Cirque du Soleil got that government grant in the first place. I don't know if you saw that.
No,
why.
I don't. I didn't look too deeply. Why'd they get the government grant? Let me know.
So basically, during the 70s and the early 80s, Quebec went through a very nationalist period. Right?
That I do know.
Yeah. Okay. So, and during this kind of failing of the Les Échassiers before it became the Cirque du Soleil, they managed to slide to edge just around the time of the 450th arrival of Jacques Cartier, where there were lots of celebrations that were put on by the government.
Okay.
And that's what allowed the Parti Québécois government, which is a nationalist government at the time, to be more on board with giving grants to cultural items like the Cirque du Soleil or Les Échassiers, and be like, okay, we're going to promote this culture as much as possible, and this one is available, so here, let's give you your chance.
That's amazing. I love it.
So I thought that was a bit of an interesting tidbit, and thus pretty much ends my knowledge of the beginning of the Cirque du Soleil.
Well, that's going to end our knowledge on the beginning of it as well. But some more fun facts for you. They've won multiple awards, including they have 7 Emmys. 7.
What? I thought that was for TV shows.
There was probably like live performances or something that were then broadcasted.
Right, that makes sense.
And they have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
You mean Guy Laliberté does, or the circus in itself?
I'm going to fact check ourselves really quickly, but this is one of the fun facts I saw. Okay, so Guy Laliberté. Got it.
Okay. I would be very surprised that it would be the entire circus itself, but yeah, okay.
I don't know, like people, that's happened, like Godzilla gets one, and it's just Godzilla, not the creator or anything.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Godzilla has one, Bugs Bunny has one, Mickey Mouse has one. The Muppets...
That makes more sense when you think of it. Like, nobody knows who the creator of Godzilla is by name, right?
Right. The Muppets as a whole have one.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so Guy Laliberté, the founder, has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But yeah, they're known for starting this new trend of circus, nouveau cirque, where things were thematic, character driven. There was a lot of time there was a story to it. And they were also became very well known for being one of the first circuses not to use animals. Which is I like that fact. I like that's a very I don't know, it just makes me feel good, that they sort of recognize we don't have to put Dumbo through torture anymore.
Yeah, and it allows them to distinguish themselves from their competition, and a competition that arguably was dying out, I guess, right? Because that's one of the reasons why the government was a bit reticent to finance them, is because who goes to the circus anymore?
And because of that, I think that saving that money on like training animals, taking care of animals and everything, that probably saved them a lot of money to put into their acts and performances. And you can see it. Like, I know you haven't been to one. I've been to, I think, 4 or 5, I think. Okay. And each one just blows you away. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure that seeing it live, I've seen clips on YouTube and stuff like that, or on TV when they show ads. So I know what you're talking about. I can visualize what you mean, but I'm sure seeing it live is absolutely breathtaking, and something that seems much more interesting than just see an elephant like go on its hind legs.
Yeah. And so moving on from that is the fact that the big thing Cirque du Soleil is known for is their themes. So every year when they release a new show, it has like a theme to it. So for example, in one of their most well-known is located in the Bellagio in Vegas. It's one of the only permanent shows. It's called O, and the whole theme is water. So the entire thing is like performed on like a sort of like a pool that like rises and lowers, and you like everything's with water, right?
Which makes sense because O in French is water. But I don't know. Look, we have listeners that are francophone. I'd rather say it now. Okay. Yeah, don't harp on me for being inclusive.
Yeah. Or sometimes they have themes. Their themes can be anything. One of them was Michael Jackson.
Okay.
So like each of the performances was sort of themed around Michael Jackson, part of his life, his music, and all that. I saw one. It was The Tempest.
The Shakespeare one?
The Shakespeare play.
How do you from your memory, how do you adapt Shakespeare to the circus? I'm genuinely curious about this.
If you're going to adapt a Shakespeare play to the circus, you're going to go with The Tempest or Midsummer Night's Dream.
I was going to go Titus Andronicus. Can you imagine how insane that would be?
Okay, they can't show an orgy to children, so Titus Andronicus is out.
Okay, you got me. But seriously, how do you? I'm genuinely curious. Like, what's your recollection of The Tempest as a show?
So, The Tempest. Well, they did the whole play, but instead of any sort of dialogue, it was all interpretive dance and performance. So, like, I remember seeing all the characters that I had studied in school and all that, and I remember seeing them go through the performance. And because one of the things that Cirque du Soleil, every Cirque du Soleil show has, on top of the crazy like gymnastics and all those performances, they also always have they work a couple of clowns into their theme that do like that will show up to like break up certain long segments. So like you'll go for a while of seeing like the acrobatics or gymnastics and be like, whoa, really high art. And then the clowns will show up for a little bit to sort of give you a break, give you a reprieve.
Right. It's an interlude.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember the clowns took part of the brunt of that, of helping to move the story along.
Interesting. Okay.
It was definitely like, it was surreal, but it was so good.
Now, remind me, The Tempest, is that the one? I'm confusing my Shakespeare because I'm not a 17th century literary scholar.
It's a bit more of my wheelhouse.
Yes. Is The Tempest the one? No, or am I thinking about Much Ado About Nothing? Or no, it must be The Tempest. Or Twelfth Night? Twelfth Night. I'm thinking of Twelfth Night. Never mind. The one where they switch.
The gender bender.
The gender bender, yeah. That's Twelfth Night.
That's Twelfth Night. Tempest is the Tempest is about a guy's on a boat sailing to the New World, and he gets caught up in a storm and he crashes on this sort of like mystical fantasy island where there lives like this like spirit king or queen and all that, and they're like trying to raise their own daughter, and then like the daughter and the son meet up. Of course, it's one of his comedies.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good.
That makes more sense why they would adapt it to the circus, because I was thinking about 12th Night. I was like, really?
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah, it lent itself well to the whole like fantastic theme of it. Other major themes include that they've done the past include Avatar, as in based on the James Cameron movie from 2008 somehow.
Look, I never underestimate the power of James Cameron to publicize his movies that take 7 years to make.
Yeah.
So
they've done the Beatles. They've done just a bunch of shows.
Now, so you mentioned that they change it every year.
Yeah, it's so.
That seems like a really rapid turnaround.
I don't think it's every year. I'm wrong on the years, but they do rotate their shows, and they rotate frequently. They have a certain set season where, so what happens is they'll cook up a show, and then they always start the shows in Montreal and Quebec City. Those are always the two starting locations to be like, we are Canadian, we are Quebecers, we are starting here. And so they do those shows, and then they tour around sort of like North America, and then they'll rotate to the next show, the next season.
Interesting.
Except for in certain locations, they have permanent shows. For example, in Vegas, I think they have like 3 or 4 of them because, Vegas performance, why not?
Yeah.
Same with, and I think there's 1 or 2 that are permanent in Mexico City.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and a couple of other places scattered throughout America.
Cool.
Again, probably could have done more research on that one, but this is just sort of the general idea.
Sure.
So yeah, because I just remember my experience of Cirque du Soleil was always just incredible. Again, for as much as like a 10-year-old attention span can last as well. When I was younger and saw the shows, a lot of it went over my head. Like a lot of it was like there was a fair amount that was kind of fucking boring, and I was squirming in my seat a bit. But the older I got, the more I could be like, wow, this is nuts.
With that being said, is it something that you think is more geared towards adults? Like, is that what really demarcates the Cirque du Soleil from previous circuses, which were very clearly a bit more for a childish audience, right? With the clowns and the exaggeration and stuff like that. Do you think one of the mainstays of the Cirque du Soleil is its ability to hit home with a bit more of an older audience?
I think it's the ability to hit home with a broader audience.
Fair enough.
So take, for example, like peak Disney movies, for example. A lot of the time, like the message is for kids, and so is like the funny jokes or whatever. But then when you're an adult and you watch it, you pick up on the themes that you didn't notice before and like all the other fun stuff. Like when you're a kid watching Beauty and the Beast versus an adult, And I find Cirque du Soleil is a lot of the same way.
Okay.
Like when you're a kid, like you laugh at the clowns and you maybe go ooh and ah at all like the beautiful colors because, oh my God, the colors are crazy. And as you get older as an adult, you can appreciate more like the actual gymnastics of it. I remember being in awe because you're sitting there and you're watching, right? And so everybody's in their leotards or whatever. Everybody is fucking ripped.
Oh, yeah, you have to be, right?
Oh my God. Like those people have abs for days.
Like we're no longer talking 6-pack or 8-pack. We're talking like a 16-pack here. Yeah.
Oh my God. It's kind of nuts. And like, I remember just being like, oh my God, these people could crush me with their thighs.
Okay. Yeah.
Fucking destroy me. Okay.
I have another question for you though. In terms of the art of it, like, yes, there's a different story and stuff like that. I don't know if you've seen more than one show, right, of a different show. Have you seen just Totem or have you seen many different ones?
I've seen about 4.
Okay.
4 that I can remember.
As you go along and as you see more and more of them, right? So from the first one you saw to the 4th one, does the magic kind of fade for you over time because you start seeing certain things that are similar, like certain acrobatics that are the same? Does it kind of fade, or does the novelty of it never quite wear off?
I think because I've only seen 4, like if you're a Cirque du Soleil fanatic and you see every show, I'm sure it starts to like drift in together, but I've only seen so many enough that it still really like captivates me when I go to watch. It's never gonna stop for me, at least, because I don't see it enough to be like, oh, yet. Cirque du Soleil again,
Mhm.
whatever. Because I remember like each performance is unique enough to be like still memorable in each show. I don't think I've ever gone to a show and been like, oh, these performances are too similar.
Okay.
Like going with O, for example, everything's based around water, right?
Yeah.
And so that's just like, that is such an experience of in of itself. If you ever have the chance to only see one show and you can get out to Vegas to see it, you owe yourself. I walked
Good
into
job.
that one. I
You walked
walked
into it. You should have just owned it. Just
I should have owned it.
yes.
Oh Lord, we need to stop.
No, we're never going to stop. It's going to
Oh
be
no,
water
why
puns
not?
until the end.
Oh boy, here we go.
Oh yes. Anyway. All right. Okay, but that makes sense. Yeah.
Because
I
like
guess I guess it's the idea of just padding it out enough that you can still make a new image of it in your mind. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, and so even if you start to see sort of like the wires and all that, you pull back the curtain a bit, you can still be impressed as hell by what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
Like with the O one, you had people like diving in the water, and then they had people set up with scuba gear to like pass oxygen so that they could stay underwater for like a long period of time before they went back up for their next bit.
Oh crap! And did you see like that section in the water? Did you see them do it? Do they do stuff in the water themselves when they're down there?
So like again, like it was a raising and lowering platform.
Okay.
So like pools of water would raise up, and then you'd see them do some stuff maybe, and then it'd go back down. And then at the very end, they raise the whole thing up, and you see the people in the scuba gear just like there with their tanks, just like, hello.
Okay. It breaks the fourth wall a bit, but not so much.
Like, again, like it's still a circus,
Exactly. Right.
And
You're
it's
not
still,
expecting the.
yeah, I'm not expecting it to like totally, I can still see the goddamn tent.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a different expectation than going to the movie or the theater or whatever.
Exactly. And it was a hell of a time. It's an experience as well. Like when you go there, like it's more of an experience than like, because movies used to be the thing that were like the experience, like you go to the movies and it was a whole thing of like getting your popcorn, blah, 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 which it still kind of is. Well, it used to be before everything was closed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same there, like getting in, getting your tickets, getting maybe some memorabilia, getting the food, finding your seats. Like it's just such a fun time.
Yeah. I'd like to do it sometime, but COVID.
Yeah, when you can.
When I can. And I just like, it's the kind of thing that I've never gotten around to, and nobody around me really is particularly interested in going.
I'd be interested.
Now exactly what I was gonna say. Like now I figured out like you're kind of into it, so I'd be down one day when we can actually see each other in person again.
Near, far, wherever you are.
Speaking of Celine Dion,
when are we getting the Celine Dion Cirque du Soleil show?
Okay, you read my mind. Can you imagine how terribly crappy that would be?
No, it would be beautiful.
How?
10 out of 10.
Okay, but let's face it. If they're ever going to do that, though, it would make sense logistically. They both have shows in Vegas already. It wouldn't be that much to set up. Be like, hey, okay, like let's do something together, right?
Is this a crossover episode?
It is definitely a crossover episode. Look, listeners, I hate Celine Dion with a passion. I think she's morbidly overrated. But I would pay the hell out of a ticket to go see Cirque du Soleil meet Celine Dion, just because I can only imagine how batshit insane that would
be. I love it. Do it.
Right? Wouldn't you?
I would.
Okay.
So my question for you is, because you only have sort of this vague knowledge of Cirque du Soleil, but hearing about it, because it plays a significant role in the identity of Quebec, as this sort of like cultural landscape. And how do you think that is, or why?
So I have mixed feelings about it, right? In the sense that it's something that I understand the kind of importance of it. Like it's something that was homegrown here, and in Quebec and in Canada in general, like we've had quite an issue with getting stuff up off the ground that really hits it on an international scale in the same way that something from the US or from Europe does, right?
Right.
So whenever there's something that really starts off small, like we mentioned at the start of the episode, and hits it big on an international scale, I always find that very cool, right? So I think there's a sense of pride in that sense.
Right.
However, and we kind of again touched upon this at the beginning of the show, is that I feel that people have kind of gotten over it in a sense. That it's the limits to how much they're willing to accept it as a Quebec institution. There are limits to how much they accept it as an institution.
Well, I don't think they really play up. Again, I don't know the full of spiel of what's been going on. I think their biggest connection with Quebec still is the fact that they always have their first shows in Montreal and Quebec City.
Definitely. And
with the École Nationale de Cirque, which we'll go into later.
Yes, but just coming back for giving context to some of our listeners, recently, or at least the latest season of the Cirque du Soleil, apparently financially hasn't been going that great.
No.
So they've been asking for financial help from the Quebec government to almost not exactly buy back. The details of it are still kind of sketchy, but to at least help financially the Cirque du Soleil stay afloat because of its status as a Quebec institution. And from what I've seen in the media, and I'm well aware that Quebec government and Quebec media has a very passive aggressive tone towards culture in general, right? Mm-hmm. We're far from being the people who are most willing to pay and to give money and financial support to theater, to the arts in general. But people are still quite anxious about giving out millions of dollars to this institution.
Especially right now.
And especially knowing that Guy Laliberté is one of the richest people on earth.
Actually?
Yeah, he's I think he's in the top 250 Forbes list, or he was recently. He is insanely rich. So it kind of muddies the waters in that sense.
Yeah, no duh. Holy shit.
Yeah, it was something like that. I have to look it up. And maybe since I've seen that statistic, it's changed. But he's definitely one of those people who is able... I remember hearing that in his divorce proceedings, he was able to give his wife something like $35,000 a month and pay for his children's school and pay for her extra expenses and their expenses and still be one of the richest people in the country.
God.
Yeah, no, it's insane. So I can kind of get why people, the limits of where people's cultural appreciation of it ends. Mm-hmm. But I still definitely feel a certain pride with saying hey, no, this is great that something like this hit it big.
Yeah, something like this is the Disney of the circus entertainment, which is a strange thing to say in of itself, but it's true. Cirque du Soleil just broke so many limitations and so many ideas of what we thought circuses have to be. So I looked up the name of the Shakespeare show, and it's called Amaluna. And it was in 2012.
Okay.
And so pretty much it's a new show every year.
Wow. Okay.
Sometimes with multiple shows in 1 year, just depending on where they go.
I guess I only hear about it once every 4 or 5 years. So that's why I had this image in my mind that there was a longer term. But yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's it's insane. C'est cray-cray.
C'est cray-cray. Oh, c'est très fou, mon ami.
That's the word I was looking for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, how about you? What do you feel about its place as a cultural institution?
I mean, again, I have that pride in it, for just what it's worth and what it's been a part of, the fact that something that's considered such an important part of art and all that makes its place in Montreal it gives me a certain source of pride, Yeah. Again, national pride is a whole other issue to deal with because we're not involved in Cirque du Soleil at all.
No. And I couldn't. There is no way in any way, shape, or form that I could ever participate in Cirque du Soleil. The limit of my participation would be as a copywriter or a writer for something about their ads. Like, no.
Same here, mon ami.
I'm lacking the flexibility, the core muscle strength, the business savvy. I don't care or can do any of that. So no.
So yeah, like again, like, and it, I don't know. I find it's nice to have that sort of thing, to be like, this is the home of Cirque du Soleil, you know?
Yeah. And there's this, I want to also touch upon another thing that I think is really interesting. So you mentioned again that their first shows are always here in Quebec, right?
Yeah,
And
when they go on tour, when the shows are touring.
definitely. And one of the things that I think people, like, we make jokes about Celine Dion and all that, but like, it's a useful comparison in this case because she's an exported product at this point, much like the Cirque du Soleil. It's that Celine Dion doesn't seem to care as much about being here. Like, she does a lot of her show in Vegas, and good on her, right? She's able to sell out show after show over there. Fine.
Her most Quebec thing is that she was an owner of a Schwartz for a while.
Exactly, right? People lose that idea, right? She, or at least in my view, like, it's not quite as culturally appreciative when you're like, yay, I really like French Canadians and French Canadian culture in Quebec and stuff like that, but you know, I'll go do everything over there where I can make more money and see you later. Whereas there doesn't seem to be that as much of a disconnect with the Cirque du Soleil.
Right. They still, yeah, I believe in that. So I thought an interesting thing to talk about now was how one would work for Cirque du Soleil.
Oh yeah, okay, sure, let's do it. How would me as a non-athletic person be able to do it?
Well, I'm talking about people who want to apply for the performance stuff.
No. Like, transform me. I want you to be able to transform this guy into a Cirque du Soleil masterpiece. Like, what are 10 steps to be the Cirque du Soleil god?
Well, so you have some options.
Okay.
So when people apply, you can apply in the categories of athlete, circus performer, clown, physical actor, dancer, musician, and singer.
Okay. At best, I could be a clown, I think.
Same. We'd be a good clown. We'd be a good clown duo.
Yep. Let's do it. Let's joker ourselves up.
Yeah. So when you apply to them, you send along your CV, the usual, like, cover letter, that sort of stuff, and you also send a demo video of an act that you've put together.
Interesting. Okay. Do you know how long this video is, or just the time of one act, no matter what it is?
The time of one act, I'd imagine most would probably clock around maybe 10 minutes.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, I think I have to imagine.
Oh yeah.
And so, but if you want to get a leg up on the competition, what you do is you can go to the École Nationale de Cirque Montréal.
Very nice. Very nice pronunciation.
Merci beaucoup. Murky Buckets. And so that's the National Circus School. It's one of like 3 circus schools in the world, first of all. Yeah, there's not a lot of, big shocker, not a lot of circus schools out there.
It's not a booming institution?
No.
Where, do you know where the others are?
I'm not sure.
I can look it up. It was just a quick question like that, but I can look it up. Give me a minute.
Yeah. And then so the École Nationale de Cirque Montréal is part of a larger, like, connection of the institution of circusing, because they're linked with Cirque du Soleil, right? So what happens is you sort of put together your act and apply through there, and then Cirque du Soleil, it sort of fast tracks you a bit, you know?
Oh, okay. It's kind of like the École Nationale de Théâtre, the theater school that we have here. You kind of go through certain motions, like you get the basics for being a professional, really. Like, instead of just, you get a wider range of stuff. Okay, that makes sense.
Exactly. And so in their programs, they have like higher education, circus and high school studies, preparatory program, teacher training, summer camps. So like they don't just cover like schools or whatever. They go from like ages 9 to 17.
Wow. Okay, great.
With the preparatory program.
Awesome. And how far, like, I would imagine at the end it would be the equivalent of a bachelor's degree or something like that?
Possibly. So it looks like they have sort of like you would get your high school diploma first
Mhm.
at the age of 17. And then, oh, there you go. There's the 3-year diploma of collegial studies in circus arts.
Okay, so like C-sharp. All right.
And the 3-year diploma of National Circus School Studies program also leads directly to a professional career.
Nice. Okay.
So the difference between the two is that the studies in circus arts includes classes on literature and philosophy,
Oh, yay! My favorite kind.
circus lit and circus philosophy, I guess.
I mean, as we've seen, the potential for themes for the circus are nigh on infinite. So literally, you could probably take many books, many fantastical books, and examine it through a circus lens. I'd genuinely be curious. Like, just, I don't know, take a story about Billy the Kid and turn it into the circus.
I mean, somebody had to do it with Shakespeare, so
yeah,
like
exactly. That being said, I don't know if there's like what would be the philosophy behind circusing.
Oh, you'd probably have to you'd probably be looking at like poetics or something to start with. You'd probably be Plato in the cave, man.
Okay, interesting.
Creating the dancing shadows.
Okay, a good start. And what if people only see the circus? Like, what is their perception of the world after only seeing the circus for 2 hours? I don't know how
are we really doing this right now?
Yes, I'm really doing this. This is fascinating to me. Like, the philosophy of circus acts is something that I'm profoundly considering writing a PhD thesis on now.
Oh God. Well, I mean, because in the poetics, I guess it would be the form of, because there's that whole idea like when you create art, it has to both entertain and educate, right?
Right.
So I guess the idea would you would start at the point of, okay, so we can create this entertainment that entertains easily enough. How do we work in the education to like a circus performance?
Definitely. Having been to the circus, have you learned, like, is the educational aspect, is that something that you recognized or do you not really remember, or you didn't care and didn't even think about it that much?
I probably wasn't even thinking about it.
Fair enough.
If there was an education, it was that circus performers are fucking shredded.
Yeah. I mean, that's as good an education as any. Get those abs, join the circus.
But let's hear your philosophy. You seemed like you know more what you were talking about.
No, but I was just spitballing. From a literary, yeah, the poetics is probably like the greatest. I was thinking about that also. It's just probably the most straightforward way you can think about it. And just what can you do with the medium of theater, I guess. I guess that's less philosophical and more of just an act in and of itself. But
and
what the medium provides
goes,
that's different than theater and movies, that's different from literature. Like, how would a specifically circus-like medium say the same message, right? Or say the message differently?
Well, because I know the Cirque du Soleil shows, they don't have any dialogue in them, like it's fully like the movement, the visual stuff. And it's really interesting. And as far as the education goes, there's also just the education of the topic itself. And I think that's why like their thematic component is such a big factor, because that would be such an easy thing to educate with. So the show I saw was one of the shows I saw, Totem. Okay. It's the human evolution. So like primordial man all the way to modern day, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
And that's educational in and of itself. And it's so like learning to portray like human evolution through circus act was kind of fascinating.
And how did that come across?
It came across pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like again, the beginning was really fucking wonky and all over the place because like it has to start that way because like the birth of the universe or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember one of the things that stands on my mind was the clowns. At one point they did, like the
did they
walking.
Have Cro-Magnon clowns?
I think so.
Yes. Okay.
So basically what they set up was that how like there's like the marching man, so it has like the monkey, and then you slowly see the man start to walk upright in different like poses.
Mm-hmm.
They basically had a bunch of clowns walking around in that sort of position.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and
I really like that. Okay.
I remember laughing my head off seeing this. I'm like, this is great. Or again, like the Shakespeare one. If you have no idea for what the Tempest is, The Cirque du Soleil show, like as somebody who's read the play and knows it, it was pretty solid adaptation. Like
Definitely, yeah.
definitely a pretty great Shakespeare adaptation. Probably better than like the Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio, where they took all the dialogue verbatim.
Nice. But I guess my question would also be, what does the medium of theater offer in terms of presenting those themes and expressing them that you couldn't get from another medium, right? How is it that much different that you really understand it from a different perspective, or does it not really matter because it's just a different medium and you can enjoy it just as much as anything, even if it's not presenting it in such a new light, right?
I think a big part of it is the use of the body to
Okay.
communicate. So like more than any other medium, more than like the only other thing that comes close is interpretive dance and dance in general, but the way they use their body in a circus performance to communicate a message, and then that use of the body plus prop, where the body is a prop in of itself, is kind of incredible.
Okay. Yeah.
Like Cirque du Soleil, I remember watching at certain points, the performer would sort of, it's almost like they removed themselves, and all you were left with was their body as the prop to be used by another performer to sort of convey the message.
Awesome. Great. Okay.
Like it was a total removal. It's a total removal of oneself.
Yeah. And okay, that's interesting. I didn't think of that, but yeah, that makes sense.
And you can't get that. Like that just that there's an allowance for that in circus that isn't in any other medium.
Or at least so purely that, right? Because there
Yeah.
is a certain body language in, especially in
Oh yeah.
theater, if you want to
In
look at it like
everything,
that.
there's a certain body language.
Exactly.
But there's none of that, like such a removal. Except it came into my mind just now, and it's the dumbest thought, but except for like cartoons where like characters will use characters to beat other characters, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, in terms of, I'm kind of imagining like the possibilities of each medium on a scale, like on a sliding scale. I guess like theater would be, or at least those artists, those visual mediums, at least, I guess theater would be the most limited, I guess, or the one that would require the most of your imagination. Movies, and then circus and animation was just way off in the other direction.
Yeah, because circus, it's like you need your imagination, but it's never the reflection of the image that they are creating is removed enough that you almost don't need to use your imagination.
Definitely.
It's a strange experience, honestly. Like seeing a Cirque du Soleil show is like it's almost out of body.
Oh yeah, okay. I've never heard it described that way. Interesting. So is your body kind of like transferred into the movement of the bodies itself? Is that what you mean, or is it just because you're so immersed in it that you don't feel like you're there anymore?
You're in a limbo state where you're following the story, like, oh, this is the story of a play, or this is the story of mankind, but it's also a circus performance. And you have that weird duality of awareness where you're thinking both at the same time, you know? And I'm like, I'm watching an adaptation of Shakespeare, but it's a circus performance. And your brain just sort of like
accepts it.
Yeah, your brain just sort of accepts it at one point. You're just along for the ride.
Yeah, but I guess that's what any medium is trying to do also. Right? It's just trying to disconnect, but like not to remove from it at all. Like that's a great descriptor of circus that, again, I've never heard before, but it's the mark of a good it's the mark of a good art piece that it makes you forget, or at least it removes you from your reality, right?
Well, like you're removed, but you're still aware of it the whole time. Because again, like I can still see the tent wall on the other side, like that iconic yellow and blue Cirque du Soleil tent wall. I can always see that, and so I always know I'm in the circus. But then I'm also like it clashes with that similar. It's like, again, going like back to philosophy, like Descartes, and not Descartes, the one who talked about the truth, right?
Leo, you're gonna have to narrow it down
I know,
a lot on that one.
It's like those images where you have like that image of like the subway, and it's moving in one direction, but how you look at it, it looks like it's moving in the other.
Oh my god. Okay. Yes.
So it's like it's moving in both directions, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that.
Are you? Yeah. I have Jean Baudrillard in mind, but I don't think that's it.
No.
Anyway,
Hold
it
on.
doesn't matter. I know what you mean.
Give a vague talk of your experience. I'll see if I can find the name in my stacks of books. I couldn't find the name, unfortunately.
Damn it. No, but I was asking a question to no one just before while you were gone, I guess, or spitballing on what my future questions would be, is because we've been talking about bodies and inhabiting space and inhabiting an area, right? Or being having out of body experiences. I was just curious, how much of the space do they actually use? Like, do they use the tent at times for projections and stuff like that? Do they go outside of their specific borders? Like, what's the spatial realm of the circus, right? What are the limitations spatially of it?
It changes from as each performance goes. Like, I remember there's just two people, and they'll sort of move around the larger stage. Sometimes they'll have like 20 people in there, 10 balancing on one other person or something. And then you got to think less horizontal occupation of space and more vertical with Cirque du Soleil. They're always like, they're climbing, they're flying around on like their wires. And I think that's another big thing that separates them from other mediums, is the use of the vertical plane.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
That's only something I've ever really seen, like the use of that vertical in something like cartoons or like video games with platformers, you know?
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And have you seen other circus performances outside of Cirque du Soleil?
Probably like, I don't know, a couple at Disney World or something.
Right. Okay. So, and in your experience, Cirque du Soleil is really one of the only ones, or one of the few that uses all that.
Yeah, I think so.
Interesting.
From what I remember. The biggest like comparison I can make in my head is to Fantasia, the Disney movie, you know, where it has that sort of like, it has a theme, and then it's just sort of like whatever sort of ideas pop into your head in a visual way. Like, for example, with Totem, one of the performances that I like remember standing out is, so they get to like the 1920s sort of era, and like we're building big buildings and all that, right?
Yeah.
And so you have like all these guys with like these prop steel girders walking around, like tossing them into the air, like Scottish caber tosses. Like, they're props, right? So they're not as heavy. Yeah. And then you've got like
iron bar.
You've got like people balancing on them.
Whoa. Okay.
And then like moving and jumping around with them. So you've got like this play of like they're like tossing the cavers around, and then the people are moving like between the cavers and everything. Like, it was fucking nuts.
Whoa. Okay. Okay. But that's fascinating, because you'd have to create, just like logistically, you'd have to create something that's light enough so that you can just toss it around, and also sturdy enough that you can balance it. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Amazing.
And like, so then like another show they had, it was just two people, this one, but it was one of the coolest ones. They had like circular pieces of like a light cloth, right? But they would spin it so fast that it would turn into like a flat disc. And then through that, they were able to like toss it like a frisbee, like roll it around and stuff. And like the things they were like, the whole illusion of it, you know? Because that's art is an illusion.
Naturally. Yeah.
Art is an illusion of us trying to recreate reality. And so Cirque du Soleil's solution was just to go with the craziest solution possible, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Again, like the people with the water people with, going down there. And like every once in a while, like I'd look to my parents and they would look at me and we'd be like, are they alive? Are they okay? Because we haven't seen certain people pop up for like 10, 20 minutes. And then at the end, when they raise the scuba people up, you're like, oh my God. And so like you see this thing, it's like, well then, that's kind of cool. That's crazy. Wow. So they almost like, they disregard the fact of that they're an illusion. Like there's this full knowledge of that they are the illusion. They don't even try and make it reality anymore. They make the illusion, they say we're all going to work for the illusion together.
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
exactly. They integrate the illusion into the entire thing.
And then the illusion becomes reality.
Yeah, yeah, I guess.
Philosophy people are gonna see this and just gonna wreck us. Just gonna
Oh,
rip us.
we're gonna get hate mail from philosophy professors.
Oh yeah, because they're listening to us.
Oh yeah, definitely.
One guy with his bachelor's degree, one guy without, finishing up
An
this year.
almost MA. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Anyway, yeah. So next topic.
Yeah. So I just had a couple questions before we
Sure.
ended Cirque, and I was just sort of like, what theme would you do? What kind of act would you be thinking of putting together? I want to hear your crazy ideas.
Ooh, okay. So I'm still down for Céline Dion. I'm not gonna let that go. I'm like a bone. I'm like a dog with a
I'm
bone.
kind of down for that.
But
I'd be
also,
happy.
what wild and crazy thing would you do for Céline Dion? Because
That's true.
if anything, she's the most milquetoast person ever. Although you could almost frame it within her own mind and her own aspirations to be something larger than life, right?
Right.
Which could be kind of fun. But also something that I would be willing to see that, or at least I would be interested in seeing, imagining, is a crossover between animation, right? You've mentioned Disney a few times, animated stuff, and the circus.
Well, lucky for you then. In their future ventures, they're doing one called Drawn to Life, where
No
they're going to
shit.
be working with the Walt Disney Company.
Fuck off.
Yeah, they're going to create a new show for Disney Springs named Drawn to Life.
Okay, tell me more about that. Do we know any details, or?
I'd probably have to look it up in the news.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I'd almost want to see Cirque du Soleil do superheroes.
Okay, I was thinking that also. Yeah, go on. Is there a specific superhero in mind that you had, or?
Well, I mean, oh my God, can you imagine a Batman show?
So it's just the entire circus is just in darkness. It's just him brooding around.
No, but he's the darkness, and then the light show is all the different villains, right? Because that's always it. Batman is the most boring character in Batman.
Yes, definitely, 100%. Hot take, but not really.
Can you imagine an Arkham Asylum themed Cirque du Soleil show?
Okay, that'd be really interesting. I was almost thinking something like Green Lantern, because then you could integrate the creation aspect of it into
That's so good.
But I really like Batman also.
The idea of a Batman one, just no Superman. Or, can you imagine the web crawlers? Like Spider-Man and just the swinging around.
Yeah, and it would be so seamlessly integrated into, it's perfect.
Or just trying to recreate Captain America's shield physics.
Oh my.
No, but literally, can you imagine them figuring out how to bounce a shield properly, or bounce a frisbee or something, special surfaces and all that?
Yeah.
One
I could also pretty well imagine would be Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Just because you have that established Greek mythology, and you can have these more fantastical elements of that mythology, but also of her own world of Themyscira or Paradise Island, of just going wild and crazy with a mix of fiction and Greek history and stuff like that, which would be pretty cool. Yeah.
I like that. I think a Harry Potter one would be kind of interesting.
Okay. I'm not the biggest fan of Harry Potter, so allow me to be skeptical on this one.
No, neither am I, but it's just again, I don't see the same potential, but the broom flying.
Yeah.
The spells of the construction and all that,
Yeah. Except hopefully more interesting than what they show in the movies.
That too.
Because
hopefully not so fucking transphobic.
Oh, yeah. Let's avoid the transphobia altogether.
Hopefully the circus performers aren't shitting on the floor and then making it disappear with magic, like the wizards do.
God damn it. Let's just forget J.K. Rowling existed.
But, I mean, I'd be interested in that.
Yeah.
I'd be interested... I was thinking of one. I could probably think of a couple different anime that could make for an interesting Cirque du Soleil show.
Yeah.
God, if you want to create an anime fight in live action, no better way than with Cirque du Soleil.
Probably not, no, because you already have the wild and crazy wire work that you can do. It just basically becomes what do you call those Japanese movies or Asian movies? I don't think it's specific to Japan where they do those martial arts with the wire work in
Oh, I
live
have no
action.
idea.
There's a specific name for it, and it doesn't come to
It's
mind.
on the
But you
tip
could,
of my head.
yeah, it starts with a D, I think. Anyway, for now it doesn't matter. It's just this idea of being able to integrate these wild acrobatics into martial arts and fantasy. Yeah, that's definitely something that would be cool.
But yeah, for my money, I think I want the Batman just because the whole idea of like the Asylum Madhouse or like the setting of Gotham City as like this big Cirque du Soleil show is kind of fucking crazy in my head, you know?
And it kind of flips this idea of darkness that we've been mentioning, kind of flips the aesthetic of the circus on its head.
Exactly.
And that it's often like a very colorful, very vibrant medium that's meant to really explode into your retinas. And that would kind of do something a bit different with it. You could almost like a negative space kind of thing.
Well, it's also in my head like the fact that they use clowns for Cirque du Soleil, and so because usually the clowns like they have their own entire sidebar that's not really part of the main plot of whatever the theme is, right?
Yeah.
The only time I saw that change was the Tempest show, and it was kind of interesting. And so I'm like, imagine the interaction you'd have with like a Joker and a Harley Quinn clowns, you know, and then them eventually be becoming part of the main show.
I would definitely see that, like that they're on the sidelines and slowly
exactly
into the foreground, and
the audience is like laughing at all their stuff, but then it turns out they're horrible like genocidal maniacs.
You know, which you always want to be the center of your theater your circus production.
That I'd like maybe like, I don't know, a video game theme one, like a Mario.
Right.
That'd be kind of cool. Mario Cirque du Soleil.
Wahoo, it's a me dangling from a wire.
Yeah.
It's like, my horrible Italian fake accent. So.
But like crawling up the girders, you know, like Bowser style, you know, like the barrel jumping, all that sort of stuff.
For sure. Yep.
There's just so many possibilities with
there is really.
And they've already opened themselves up to do whatever. Like Turok, the first flight based around Avatar.
Really?
Yeah. Like the second they did that one, they opened themselves up to do whatever.
Yeah, really. Is there an original idea that you would do? Not adapted from something else?
I don't know if you call that adaptation, but the mythology one would be kind of cool. Stories of different mythology or whatever, you know? Or like if I had to pick like an original theme, God, maybe the deep sea.
Okay.
Again, thinking with how lighting works, like the bioluminescence of fish.
Yeah.
I think could be kind of crazy to do, you know?
Or you could do the complete opposite in space.
Mm-hmm.
Although I feel that would be a bit boring, to be honest.
Yeah, well, space is always done, you know?
Yeah.
And I like the mystery. Like, we know more about space than we do the bottom of our oceans.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Except James Cameron, because apparently he took like a submarine for the abyss or something like that. So he knows more about the ocean than anyone.
James Cameron saw Atlantis. He just isn't saying so.
That's what he's making Avatar about, is just Atlantis, is his visions of Atlantis.
Well, apparently the whole thing's involving like scuba gear and water stuff.
All right.
We need to stop predicting the themes in movies.
Just, yeah.
A deep sea, the more I think about deep sea Cirque du Soleil, I think would be really cool.
I'd be down for it. Yeah, totally.
Again, because you have that interplay of like the dark and the light, because like the animals down there make their own lights.
That's true. Yep.
That
would be really cool.
And then like the thermal vents. Oh, it'd be so sick.
And would you have like a conflict in it, or just the spectacle? The conflict is pollution.
There would probably be a conflict, but it'd be the basic conflict of survival between creatures, you know? Because that's also where some of like the most dangerous ones are. Like that's where giant squids are.
Yeah.
Can you just imagine like the giant squid predator just lurking in the background all the time?
Can you? Oh, that'd be good. And it's like those Chinese dragons. It's just people in it, kind of floating around in it. It'd be kind of cool. All right. Interesting.
Hey.
Okay.
All right. I think we'll end this discussion on Cirque du Soleil and we'll move on. Quick wrap up with Le Squad. Neuf Neuf.
Yeah, Esquad Nef Nef. So have you seen any of it?
I've
So
seen
there's
like
something like 5 or 6 episodes out.
I've seen a trailer.
Okay.
I've seen a trailer, like a clip here and there. And from what I've seen and heard, it's just Brooklyn Nine-Nine in Quebec. Like
Yeah.
they literally just took almost the script verbatim
And translated it.
and translated it. Well,
Pretty much.
it's still in French? Yeah, it is.
Yes, it's in French. It's actors from here, directors and producers from here. The most notable one who's associated with it is Patrice Huard,
Who's that?
he's one of the producers and directors on it. He's a famous comedian here.
Okay.
Have you seen Good Cop, Bad Cop?
No. Bun
No.
Cup, Bad Cup.
Right, Bon Cop, Bad Cop. He's the one who plays the bad cop, the Quebec. If ever, they're well-known
Okay.
movies here, but
Yeah,
if ever,
I know all about it.
if
I
ever
just
you're
haven't seen it.
imagining who I'm talking about, that's him.
Okay.
The bad cop, the French Canadian one. But it is a rather interesting show in its own sense.
Mhm.
So my knowledge of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the original show, is limited. I've seen a few episodes here and there, enough to get a grasp of the characters and what they're for. And, it's a really funny show that I've just never taken the time to watch because I'm painfully slow at watching stuff.
Oh God, do I know that one?
But what's your take on the original show before we move on to
I love the
version?
original show. I keep up with it as much as I can. I know that recently they're slowing down their production so they can rethink and rewrite the show just based on what's going around in what's going. And I think that's like it's an interesting comparison to make with the fact Le Squad is still going
Yes.
forward. Like it's still just like still using all the show and all that.
Yeah,
Interesting.
definitely. I mean, not to disparage on American police or whatever, but like there is a difference. There are certainly issues here in Quebec with the police, right? So that's what you were referring to with the like rethinking what the show is about, and that's totally fair.
I'm interested to see if Esquad Neuf Neuf ever starts doing their own episodes for themselves. I'm interested to see how and if they integrate the RCMP.
Ooh, that would be interesting.
Because that's like a minefield more than like because the RCMP is as much like it's almost as much cultural to Canada as it is like a law enforcement branch.
Yeah. They're basically there for the places who aren't rich enough to pay their own police force.
So I'm interested to see if they pop up and how they like discuss it, because that's the other thing with Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's never been shy about talking about the fact that there are a lot of problems in the system.
Okay, interesting. I don't think I've ever seen those episodes.
So there was one episode because one of the main characters is played by Terry Crews.
Yeah.
And so he's a big hulking black man, right? But he's nicest guy. You see him on TV and all that. Nicest guy, biggest advocate for like Black Lives Matter and all that.
Great.
And so in one episode, he gets racially profiled. Like he's out looking for his daughter's stuffed toy that she left behind on the sidewalk. And so he's in like suburban neighborhood. He finds the toy, and a white cop stops him and like puts the hand on the gun and says, "Sir, can you back down?" Blah 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 and all that, right? And he only gets out of it because he says, like, "I'm a cop. I have my badge on me right now." And he's like, "That's bullshit. You shouldn't profile me just because like I'm a black man in a suburban neighborhood."
Exactly.
And so like the show talks about those topics a lot, which is again why they slow, like why they tossed, apparently like they said, "Oh, we tossed out 3 episodes for this coming season. We want to rewrite it."
Okay.
Yeah, just because like then they want to remake the show to reflect the current times.
For sure, which is a reasonable thing to do, right?
For a show so heavily focused on cops and police, yeah.
Yeah, I think that can actually like segue us into the Quebec version of it, which was the focus of the discussion, right? It's this because I think a lot of the reason why this Quebec version is getting a bit more attention, at least here, is in part because of those racial issues, right? So we were mentioning it before recording. So 2 of the main characters in Brooklyn Nine-Nine are Latino, right? Or one?
Yeah.
1 or 2? Yeah, 2.
There's 2 Latino women and 2 black men. Okay. One of the Latino women is bisexual, and one of the the captain is gay, black.
So the sexuality aspect, from what I've seen of the Squad 99, is not brought up. Right?
Well, so apparently the captain's still gay.
Great. Good on him.
Yeah.
The few bits I've seen is not mentioned, and that's maybe they'll bring it up more as I watch or something like that.
Well, because it's never been a big thing in the original show either, so I don't like.
Fair enough. However, one of the things that they did not translate to the Quebec version, and that has been getting a lot of pushback, not only from the original actresses in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but I think, people who are interested in culture and media in general, is the fact that the counterparts to those Latina characters are not Latin American.
No, they're white Quebecers.
Yeah, they're white Quebecers. Right. They kept the black officers.
And interesting enough, they specified them as Haitian.
Yes, and that's what I was going to bring up. So rightfully so, the production team has kind of gotten some flack for not integrating characters who, from what I've seen of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, it's an integral part of their character that they're Latin American. Oh, yeah. They make it really a central focus, and that's fine. That's great.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine's always taken pride in the whole diversity, and it's been part of a lot of its episodes.
Yeah, and it's not like there are no Latin American actors in Quebec, right?
or just like other, like, I don't know, I don't want to say like equivalents or anything that, but like because Melissa Fumero, the actress for one of the Latina actors, is one of the ones who brought this up in a tweet, and she asked like, what's the ratio, like what's the percentage of the population of like the Latino population and all that. And like, fair enough, there probably isn't a lot of Latinas in Quebec, but then why not say an indigenous woman,
a Native American person, or I don't know, some Mediterranean
or Chinese or something like that,
all of which are definitely major demographic components, right? But I do like to me, they kind of, I don't think they compensated, but they tried, I think, to bring in a more of a diversity aspect, exactly as you were mentioning, because the two black officers, whose names I forget what their translated names are in French, but they're Haitian, right? Which is a major demographic element in Quebec. And even the Captain Holt, he does speak Creole, right? Many times during the episodes I saw.
That's really cool. I didn't know. They were so close. They tripped really at the finish line.
However, it's kind of weird, and this is more of a writing thing and a quality thing, is that he speaks Creole, but his other Haitian peer never answers him in Creole or anything. It's always in French. So it's kind of one-sided and a bit weird, but that's more of a production issue that I have than anything else.
God.
Right? It's a bit odd, right? And there's a bunch of issues that I can talk about for the show, right? The background characters that are kind of pushed to the side in favor of the main characters, when in the original Brooklyn Nine-Nine, a lot of the comedy came from those background characters, or secondary characters, however you want to call them. But I think they tried something. Could it be better? Yes, but I think they definitely tried something with the Haitian thing. And I think you can commend them somewhat for that. Now, production-wise and writing-wise, they could integrate it better, but it's definitely an interesting step and an interesting adaptation for the realities of Quebec.
For sure. I don't know, I just thought that it was it's important that we recognize, like, contextualize the pop culture in our modern Canada. And a Squad 99, just in relation to everything else that's been going on. It's kind of interesting, I also like that they just call it Squad 99.
Yeah, that's the translation, would be the literal.
Yeah, like, instead of, like, because it's Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but so they don't say, like, I don't know if that's all, like, the police stations are Squad 1, Squad 2, or whatever in Canada or in Quebec.
So I know in Montreal they're named by the translation would be post or station. So poste 22, poste 23, so on and so forth.
Poste 99.
Yeah, poste 99. I don't know. I have a friend. One of my best friends is a police officer. I'd have to ask him what the logistical or what the language used is
Mm-hmm.
specifically. But yeah, it's basically just Station X or Y.
Okay, interesting.
From what I've seen in Montreal, there aren't enough police stations where I live to warrant different numbers. I don't even think there is a police station here in Chambly, but
Oh my god.
because we just share like one massive police force for the entire Montérégie area.
Okay. Interesting.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't really have anything else to add on Escouade 99. I know one of the people in it. He's kind of cool.
I'm sure. Again, like, I don't blame so much the people. Like, if I'm gonna be blaming people at the whitewashing, it's gonna be like the top people, probably.
The production man. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
casting.
Like, I'm not gonna blame the actresses who are just trying to get a job.
Oh, for sure. Especially like we've mentioned at the start of this very episode, the kind of difficulty to make something and to make your name for yourself within the Canadian or Quebec or provincial sphere as an artist outside, like working outside of the American sphere is very difficult here for a variety of reasons. But as I can't fault them for wanting a job.
No, like, I'm not. Yeah, I just thought it's an interesting talk about, and the fact that like it was such like on my Facebook feed, this was there for days with how much people were talking, how much Quebecers were talking about the whitewashing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I saw it a bit on Twitter, and then by the time I went back on a few days later, it had kind of disappeared. But I'm sure that for those many days, as you say, it was just everywhere. But yeah, interesting stuff.
And whitewashing is always just going to be a topic that's going to be coming up a lot.
For sure. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
No, for the best.
I don't know. Do you want to wrap it up, or do you have anything else to say?
I think I will leave it there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, take it away.
So this has been the first episode of Pop Canada. Thanks for listening, everybody. It's been a real treat. Stream it to your friends. This is a Patreon special, so for all our Patreon fans, thank you for your service.
Definitely.
If you're just finding this on Patreon, please go watch the original Mother series, Historia Canadiana.
It's always nice to have other people listen.
Yeah, we love discussion. Leave a review. This is a Patreon video, so leave comments if you like. Share it with your friends.
Yep.
Thanks so much. I don't know if you have anything else.
No, I mean, just invite other people to join the Patreon. I think we're doing some interesting stuff here, and I'm really excited to do more Pop Canada. Mackenzie had a great idea with doing this, and honestly, I think this was a great first episode.
Oh yeah, and I have so many brain children ideas for the future. Like
brain children.
Well, just like an episode on like comedians and comedy in Canada, an episode on like the music scene in Canada, a whole episode dedicated just to appreciating Michael Bublé.
Oh my God! Do you know? Okay, this is a weird fact that I found out. I think it was like one of those Graham Norton clips that comes up every once in a while on your Facebook feed. It was like, for some reason, Michael Bublé, who's from BC, by the way, that's why you were coming. For some reason, his Christmas album tops the #1 chart every year in Australia since it came out.
I love it. I think I knew that one.
But it's like, who's still buying this? Like, how many people after a while own it? Is it like the ultimate regift? Is it just a gag by Australians that they all kind of have one, but they still want to buy more? Because at some point since like 2012 that this freaking album came out, you'd assume that every household in Australia had one. Why are you still buying it to #1?
I mean, even like when the Christmas years rolls around, Michael Bublé starts topping the charts again.
Yeah. But like, listen to him on the radio and that's enough. Don't buy his album every year.
Buy his album on iTunes.
Anyway,
support the Bublé. Watch the Christmas show.
Okay, I think when
I love you, Michael.
When we're talking about hashtag support the Bublé, I think it's time to call
I love the bubbly commercials because Bublé's the spokesman now, so the commercials are just him like.
Of course he is.
Crossing out the Y and making it an E for Bublé.
I kind of hate that, but also really love it, so I can't fault him for it.
Yeah. So who knows what the next episode will be on? If we're gonna do a Michael Bublé tribute, it has to be proper, so it's not gonna be for a while.
Oh yeah, for sure. And
Not
yeah,
till we're
like,
big enough to get Michael Bublé himself.
oh my god, can you imagine getting him on just on a Zoom call? If now's the time, it's now. If there's ever a time, it's now when he's at home, like everyone else.
Start a petition, call your congressman, get us Michael Bublé.
We don't have congressmen in Canada, though.
Oh my god, Patrick, you're ruining the moment.
Call your senators or MPs?
This has gone so far to shit. I think we should just end it here.
Okay.
Thanks for listening.
Cheers, everyone.